With Pinocchio's remakes making all the waves, we can't help but think how the visionary director Guillermo came up with a unique take on the classic kids' fairy tale. But the more we learn about the Academy Award-winning filmmaker, the more his understanding of the macabre makes sense. From his father's kidnapping to his mother's paranormal experiences, the director has many secrets that only finally are being revealed. So let's take a look at all the skeletons he's got hidden in his closet. First up, James Cameron helped rescue Del Toro's dad. Yes, no matter how strange this may sound, Guillermo del Toro's dad was kidnapped, and Titanic's director James Cameron came to help out his friend. While there may have been some misconceptions about this story, Del Toro has also helped clear the air. He first met Cameron at a 4th of July party right at the start of his career, and they quickly became good friends. Struggling with debt at the time, things got worse when his father was kidnapped in their hometown, and $1 million was demanded as a ransom. While many believe that Cameron had paid the ransom, Del Toro cleared the air by stating that he did not in the way you expect. Cameron had stepped in and paid for the negotiator who assisted the family to help rescue his father. The director had seen Guillermo in trouble and wanted to help save his father's life. He did just that, and his father was finally set free after 72 days. Next up, regular rituals of exorcism. If you've seen Del Toro's movies, you know he adores the scary and the macabre. So it's not surprising that he frequently employs demon iconography or literal demons in his works and regularly convinces the audience to sympathize with the monsters rather than the monstrous humans. But it turns out that real demons were circling his life, or at least according to his grandmother. When he was just a child, his parents often left him with his grandmother and, more importantly, his imagination. Both were often at odds with each other, mainly because of his penchant for monsters and ghosts. He had explained once that he would wake up in the dream as if he was in his room and see creatures all around him. His grandmother, a Mexican Catholic, wasn't a fan of his scary obsession. She was terrified of his ramblings about such demonic matters and would frequently throw holy water at him to exorcise the demons or put metal bottle caps in his shoes to bleed away the sins of his flesh. It's not surprising that they had a tense relationship, but the concept of fear stayed with him and is present in all his projects. Coming up, Del Toro's mother's scary paranormal experiences. In typical Del Toro fashion, he has regularly juxtaposed terrifying real-life experiences and events from his life into his films to bring together magical and horrific elements of fantasy. Del Toro revealed that his gothic romantic fantasy Crimson Peak was inspired in part by his mother's own experiences with ghosts. Turns out that when his mother was a child, she saw his grandmother's apparition in the hallway and smelled her perfume as said apparition lay down beside her on the bed. The young girl was terrified, and it makes sense that she recalled the story to her kid as well. Instead of being scared, though, Del Toro created a similar scene at the start of Crimson Peak. His mother's terrifying experience had served as yet another source of inspiration for Del Toro's work. Following up, Del Toro debuts with a killer potato movie. Del Toro's fascination with monsters began at a young age, even before his interest in cinema, but when he was around 8 years old, he began to play with his father's Super 8 camera, which sparked another interest that helped satisfy his curiosities and creativity. Not only was he constantly writing stories and sketching out ideas, but he also began making short films. And whether you think this is disturbing or not, one of his most intriguing shorts was about a potato that killed his entire family. Young Guillermo was demonstrating that he had an odd taste and wild imagination from the very beginning. Moving on, Del Toro's directed movies in both English and Spanish. Guillermo del Toro is one of the most famous Mexican directors in Hollywood, and it's clear to all that he's proud of his heritage despite being traumatized by his father's kidnapping. Even though his early films, such as The Devil's Backbone, were in Spanish, he has since transitioned to mostly English films. But it should be noted that one of his most acclaimed works was told in Spanish, Pan's Labyrinth. To broaden the story to a larger audience, Del Toro wanted there to be English subtitles, but he wasn't happy with how they were being written out. To him, those in charge had butchered the subtitles for The Devil's Backbone and criticized them, stating that they seemed to be created for the thinking impaired. So Del Toro took matters into his own hands and ended up writing the subtitles himself with some assistance, and the film became one of the best in any language. Next, Del Toro regrets declining Harry Potter. Del Toro admits that turning down the opportunity to direct any of the Harry Potter films is one of his greatest regrets. Many directors were considered, including Del Toro, and it would have been interesting to see the director put his own darker spin on the series, though he may have thought it was too dark. He was interested in the project, but felt it wasn't the right time or the best fit for him, but he did encourage his friend and fellow director Alfonso Cuarón to direct Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the third film. Del Toro stated that he would have loved to direct some of the series' later installments, but it never happened because he was too busy working on projects like Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, and Pacific Rim. Now, we're not sure what Del Toro's vision board for Potter would look like, but we're guessing the amphibious creature in shape of water would have been the creature attacking Harry in his second task in The Goblet of Fire. Next, Guillermo's nightmares can be thanked for his horror-esque Pinocchio. As idiosyncratic as Del Toro's vision is, though, he isn't making a sweet fairy tale and making it horrifying. Internationally, the best-known telling of the story is still the Disney one, and in that, Pinocchio has turned into a donkey and swallowed by a giant sea monster. I saw the Disney film at a very early age, says Del Toro, and it's one of the scariest films I've ever seen. The original book is scarier still. As Del Toro says, there have been 60-odd Pinocchio films, and even before I saw the Disney film, I saw coloring books and picture books, but the novel stands apart from all of them as one of the strangest and most disturbing classics in children's literature. Then there are the title characters' deaths, all of them. Pinocchio passes away 3 or 4 times in our movie, according to Del Toro, who also taught BBC Culture that death teaches the character that the only true human end that ends in death. That doesn't appear in any of the other 60 Pinocchio movies, of which there are around 60 known to exist. Now, this one's obvious, but the movie pays homage to all his works. The director has even put his name in the stop-motion film's full title, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is fair enough, as it could be the quintessential Guillermo del Toro production. Its eerie, magical creatures appear to be relatives of those in 2004's Hellboy. He referred to 2 of his earlier horror fantasies, which brought together the supernatural and the Spanish Civil War. He said he made it clear that this movie was not for kids, it was for the soccer parents and the troubled adults. Coming up, Del Toro's Pinocchio is a bit more Shakespearean than the rest. After a 15-year wait, Pinocchio was eventually created and made available. It's a timeless tale about how priceless and frail we all are as people and how dependent we are on one another. They also wanted to include the iconic beats, but in fresh and novel ways, given how well-known the story is. In contrast to other Pinocchio stories, which usually focus on compliance, centers on disobedience, which is what ultimately leads to human development. The distinction between concepts and ideology is at issue. You build a concept from experience, empathy, and comprehension. Ideology is what you are given and told to blindly follow. Following up, Guillermo did the impossible when he made stop-motion animations real. This stop-motion movie features naturalistic acting with lots of tiny motions from the actors. They intended to include careless movements, itchiness, periods when they're weak, fatigue, and failed actions, like it requiring 3 tries to close a door. But despite all this attention to detail, the most surreal aspect of the movie is Pinocchio the puppet. To create a distinctive piece of stop-motion acting, they followed the guidelines listed in their animation Bible, which included trying to depict errors, failed actions, characters listening, animate micro gestures, and avoiding pantomime. The film is lovely, poignant, and has a heart of gold, but it deals with ideas, feelings, and things that will bring you back to reality. Finally, Pinocchio is the scariest children's story ever written. Geppetto is poorer than he is in either the Disney films or the Del Toro ones. He has a fire painted on the wall because he can't afford the fuel for a real one. The character we know as Jiminy Cricket or Sebastian J. Cricket, played by Ewan McGregor in Del Toro's version, is simply the talking cricket, and he lasts for a total of 2 pages before Pinocchio throws a mallet at him and he was stuck to the wall stone dead. The Blue Fairy is a ghostly little girl who speaks without barely moving her lips, and the cat and the fox string Pinocchio up from an oak tree. Yet none of this sounds kid-friendly unless your kid has the same tendencies as Guillermo, in which case, carry on. To make matters even grimmer, this could have been the end of the story. Collodi had planned to leave his hapless hero dangling from the noose, and it wasn't until readers begged for further installments that the serial was resumed 4 months later. Are you psyched to see Del Toro's unique spin on Pinocchio? Comment down below if you're just as psyched to watch the movie. Hey, do us a favor and like and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.